Welcome to the EOB Podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Benno, and joining me is Sen Duong. So, Sen, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so you were out for the last two podcasts, I believe, or I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
more, but last two. So, welcome back. So we can continue to talk about the movies. I believe you missed out on Justice League.
Justice League, Coco, and Wonder.
Yeah, surprisingly, Wonder, we forgot about Wonder, or even I overlooked Wonder, and we can get to it. How about we jump right in? The movies was released on a Wednesday because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Last week. Since you were gone for a while, how about you bring us in?
All right, at number one, no surprise at all, is Coco, Pixar's new animated film about the Spanish festival celebrating death.
Yes.
What's that festival called?
It's not Cinco de Mayo. That's May 5th.
It's like something of death or something of the dead. Something.
Yeah, I know, but there's a name for it. Let me see. Hold on, let me.
Yeah, there's a name for it.
Spanish.
Yeah. Let's do a quick Google search.
Yes. Let's see.
Again, this is how much research we do for.
I know.
Podcast.
Oh, Dia de los Muertos, I believe.
Yeah,
Right.
and what does that translate to?
Day of the Dead.
Yeah,
As you
Day
said,
of the Dead. That's
Day
what I
of the
mean.
Dead. All right.
Yeah.
And that's how
Okay.
good my Spanish is, and that's why I don't use it often.
All right. I think some people mentioned it before too. It's pretty much it's another animated film about Day of the Dead. I think the one before this was Book of Life, right?
Yes, Book of Life. The I think it's a stop motion animation.
No, I think it's 3D too.
Oh, really?
Um,
Well, could
yeah,
be.
I think
Could
it's
be, but they
3D.
anyway either stop motion or 3D, but they made it into like stop motion.
No, it's pretty 3D, I think.
No, I think the
Uh,
movement kind of like blocky. They're not like very animated. They're smooth, I believe.
No, it's made by I think it's Guillermo del Toro, right? Let me see. Oh, not it might be produced by him,
Let's see.
but not directed or written by him.
Okay,
Maybe
let's
produced
do
by him.
our search in real
Yeah.
time. Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Book of
Book
Life.
of Life.
Book of Life.
Guillermo del Toro. I think he's a producer.
Okay, who also happens to have a movie out this week.
Yeah,
Let's see. Book of Life. I love real time.
real time research.
Okay, all right. No, so you're right. Okay, I see some smooth movements there. So you're right. Okay, so anyway, Book of Life, another a previous movie about the Mexican holiday, Day of the Dead. This one, taken on by Pixar, different studio, and of course different budget, so it probably looked better, right? And I heard from the reviews they say this is one of the best looking Pixar movies, as expected.
Yeah. And surprisingly, I mean, Book of Life was decently well reviewed and looked great too.
Mm-hmm.
And it did okay box office. I think not great. I think it did like 50 million or a little bit below that. Not blockbuster level, but it was okay for something not by Pixar and any of the acclaimed animated studios.
Right, this one's by
Animation
Fox.
studios.
This one's by Fox.
Yeah.
Distributed by Fox. I'm not sure. They probably went with the Fox Animation Studio, right? If it's
I'm not sure because Fox was using
Blue Sky.
was it Blue? Yeah, they might be using Blue Sky at that time.
Or one of the other
but
ones.
I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think Book of Life was Blue Sky though.
Okay. All right.
But anyway, it could be wrong. But similar theme. Except this one's by by one of the best animation studios of all time, Coco.
Yes.
And the reviews were even better, than Book of Life, 96%, and it's one of Pixar's best reviewed films since
Forever.
probably Finding Dory. Or if you want an original film since forever.
Well, yeah. The thing is like even with the previous, the past couple of Pixar films, they were more like grudgingly praised, like more like damning by faint praise, like, oh yeah, it's all good, but not as great. They don't capture the the previous Pixar magic. But I think with the
Right.
Coco, I think the reviews are pretty glowing.
You know what? There were a few that say, that says the same thing, that the magic's no longer there, but this is still good enough. But yeah, more often than not, they said that, hey, this is Pixar back in their top form.
Right. I mean, more importantly, I guess with me when I did the podcast last week, my projections was quite close.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I said.
You know what? Actually, I forgot to mention some. We forgot to mention some numbers.
Okay.
It's
right.
number one.
All right.
It pulled in 49 million over the 3-day holiday, and the 5-day holiday starting at Wednesday, it pulled in 71.2 million.
All right. And now get to the important part that relates to me, right?
Yeah.
I said my number was pretty close, and it is. I said the 3-day figure it could pull in 50 million, and 5 days 70 to 75 million, which is like right there.
Wow, you were dead on.
Yeah.
You were dead on.
Yeah, and I compared this to Moana because I said, yeah, this is a release around the same time. Moana was released around Thanksgiving as well last year, and that it was also a original IP. And and this is not a sequel, so the numbers should be around the same, and it's right there.
Yeah, and what else is Moana? Although it was pretty well reviewed back then, it still wasn't as well reviewed as Coco. I think Moana is at the 88% range, and Coco is like 96%. So it's kind of one of those near perfect Pixar movies.
Right. And even though I said that the movie did the same, I mean the numbers are still kind of low, even though it might be what it could do during the holidays at the Thanksgiving holiday. So
yeah. Plus, in terms of mass appeal, the subject matter is not something that Americans are very familiar with. Day of the Dead is more a Mexican holiday.
Yes.
You think of it that way, it's because pre-release tracking, people were only thinking like 50 to 65 million 5 days, and this is above even the most optimistic projections.
Right. I also said that just like Moana, right? It's kind of like a culture that's not very familiar.
Right.
Here, so that's why these two movies are similar, and the box office take are the same. And with the 96% tomato meter last I checked, and an A+ cinema score, I think this as with all, not all, but the majority of Pixar movies, they're gonna linger in theaters, especially for the holidays. So they could.
And like Moana opened to about around the same numbers, and eventually went on to gross 250 million. Domestically, which is a pretty high multiple for a film that opened that huge. So Coco could end up doing similar numbers.
Right. And hey, let's mention the worldwide figure, right? It opened overseas already. Probably not everywhere. Only a couple. I mean, it made a lot of money from Mexico.
Yeah, well, it did make a lot of money from Mexico. It made like 50 million or something from Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's like record opening of all time or something. 49 million. That's like some kind of record was broken in Mexico.
Sure. I mean, because of how ingrained the holidays is in their culture. I mean, not unsurprisingly, right? But still a huge number from Mexico, and worldwide is at 153 million. And counting.
And let's mention the China figure.
Okay, go ahead.
It pulled in 18 million, which doesn't sound for the weekend, which doesn't sound that impressive. But for a Pixar film, that's very impressive because Pixar's films, with the exception of Toy Story 3, have always performed. I wouldn't say poorly, but if they make it to the 20 to 30 million range, they consider pretty good. Yeah, but this one actually opened to 18 million over the weekend, and the surprising thing about this one was on Friday it didn't open that well. It only made a couple million, but on Saturday and Sunday that it jumped to 7 million and 8 million on Sunday. So this is actually getting a similar type of word of mouth like Zootopia, which didn't open on the opening day, wasn't that high, but the word of mouth spread so quickly that it eventually ended up Zootopia eventually ended up grossing, I think, around 200 million in China, which was, at the time, some kind of, a record for animated film. And this, we're very early, but it's showing some similar signs to that.
Yeah, didn't we say previously that either animated movies don't usually do that well, or Pixar movies don't usually do that well in China?
Pixar movies, both early on animated films usually don't perform that well in China, but it's caught up in the last few years. Like China has an animated film that did 180 million. The Kung Fu Panda movies did 100 or near 200 million. Other animated films, Pixar especially, didn't usually do that well. They kind of top out at around 30 million. But animated features from other studios have gone on to gross, 60 million or higher. So the animation genre has definitely expanded at a really high pace in the last few years, with the exception of Pixar. But it looks like Coco might break that Pixar trend.
Okay. So it's kind of odd that Pixar is big here.
Yeah,
but not.
I think a lot of
China.
that has to do with the language barrier, because
but
Pixar's films are more cerebral, and sometimes that kind of stuff just doesn't translate.
right, but you say that other animation studios, they're better than Pixar. So
yeah, that's true, because some of them aren't, like a lot of them are more slapsticky, so it's easier to translate slapstick humor. Broad comedy, it's easier to translate broad comedy than something like Inside Out, which is more cerebral, or something like even Wall-E, which is more a commentary on the future and loneliness and things of that nature than animals falling or being punched in the face, and
like anvil falling up on top of them, right? Getting punched.
Yeah. So those are easier. That kind of humor, like physical comedy, are a lot easier to translate than cultural comedy.
Okay, all right. Hey, let's give a shout out to the director, Lee Unkrich.
Sure.
Lee Unkrich, right? He did,
Sure.
Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Toy Story 3, and Coco. So he has a pretty good resume so far.
Yeah, I mean, John Lasseter had a pretty good resume until Cars came out.
Well, yeah, but you could say
Yeah.
that Cars has a special function. Despite it not being well regarded, he's a merchandising powerhouse. So hey.
Yeah, I just noticed something over the weekend while I was shopping. Why Cars, they keep on cranking them out. I was buying video games, and there's a video game of Pixar movies. At the center of it is Cars, and I think it's about all these Toy Story worlds, all these Toy Story characters from all these Pixar movies, racing in a kind of Cars type environment that takes them to all the other Pixar worlds.
Oh, okay.
So I can understand why Cars is easier to merchandise. It's easier to translate into a game. It's such an easy merchandising avenue for them that even though they have more successful films in terms of video games, they would rather push them through the Cars, I guess, the Cars franchise than going with the other popular franchise.
Oh, right. I mean, a lot of games are just slap the brand over an existing, I guess, type or game, and then
it's easier to. I guess it's easier to do a car racing game than to do a game on, I guess, Inside Out or Wall-E or other Pixar movies.
Oh, right.
So I guess it goes to show you how versatile Cars is in terms of merchandising.
Right. But hey, Cars, is a perennial bestseller. I guess like kids love it. Cars. Why not? So there you go.
In terms of the merchandising.
Yeah, merchandising. Yeah. So that's why. So that's why Cars is, even though it's not well regarded, as a movie.
Yeah, and it's not doing as well anymore. as a
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, but then again, the bigger picture, right? You have the
Yeah,
toys, then the backpacks, lunch boxes.
yeah. And
The
it's not just a launching pad for Cars merchandise. It's also a launching pad for the other Pixar movies. In terms of the merchandising.
right.
They're able to do video games for the other movies through Cars. Not the other way around.
Right. We said that they could rejuvenate cars by like doing some what's crossovers. Hey, they did it with the game already.
Yep. That's right.
Right. Okay. All right.
Let's get back to Coco.
Yeah, Coco. So even though the number's not huge, I mean for this time for the Thanksgiving holidays, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good for especially an original IP.
Right, exactly, and for a coach, for a movie, a subject matter that's not that huge here. That's not part of the culture here.
Right, and it didn't seem like John Lasseter's controversy, with the sexual assault allegations affected this much, or maybe it did a little bit. We were not quite sure.
Yeah,
but it did surpass people's expectations going in. So probably not.
Yeah, probably not that big, much. But since he's pretty much like behind the scene anyway, and he's not the one directing it, right?
Right.
He's just some person who has his name on the producers list.
Right. All right, bring us in at number 2.
Okay, so number 2 is Justice League, the DC Warner Brothers answer to the Avengers. They they have all these superheroes gathered together. We have Wonder Woman, the Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman. Hey, Batman's at front and center with Ben Affleck in the role. The movie didn't open well, I feel. It opened to 93 or 94 million.
What figure did you put it in?
Let's see. I put it high because I thought that would be kind of like Batman versus Superman. I say could open to 160, but hey, I fell way below that. And there's no Superman in the movie. He might come later.
There's Superman in the movie.
Well, yeah, but he come later, right? This is This is Justice League, right? Without Superman, there's no Justice League. But anyways, at the beginning, it's like when Batman gathering all these people, and then I say it might not reach the level of Batman versus Superman, but it just could be there, right? But then it fell way below that. Before I forget to mention, it pulled in 40.7 million in the second weekend. Drop off not that huge, about 57% drop off. Domestic gross is 171 million. But hey, the movie I thought could open higher, but it didn't. And obviously this movie is gonna cost a lot of money. But I said that hey, with the low opening, it could be that all the previous movies leading up to Justice League, all the bad reviews, finally caught up to the DC cinematic universe. With the exception of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, we mentioned that before. We said, hey, you can't keep on cranking out these subpar movies, or eventually it's going to catch up and it's going to affect, the subsequent films. And it looks like it's finally happening with Justice League, because even with the exception of Wonder Woman, we thought I was probably figuring with you, because I actually read some online, Twitter reports from online critics that it was better than they were expecting. So I was expecting it to do pretty well, to do better than Batman v Superman, which was a disappointment. But
right. Just hold on there. Let's talk about that point, right? I mean, we know that this movie is directed by Zack Snyder, right? But before he could finish, Josh Whedon came in.
Yeah,
and took over
to do some reshoots.
Do some reshoot or and do final edits. So that could be the reason why, for some of the good reviews,
Yeah. But surprisingly, even with some of the early online buzz, the reviews turn out just as bad as Batman v Superman. It's a little bit better, I think. Justice League is at what, 40%? 41%.
Yeah, 41%. Yes.
And I think Batman v Superman was like 35%, right?
I'm not sure, but I had to look it up.
Oh, okay. Batman v Superman was at only 27%. So
Okay, that's even worse. That's even worse.
yeah,
But I expect the reviews to be like relatively the same since we know that they're probably
yeah.
not
Zack
going to change.
Snyder.
Yes, Zack Snyder, and they're
Yeah,
probably not going to change much from the previous movies. Since he's the
yeah,
mastermind behind the DC cinematic universe, and
right.
reviews or his dark and gritty stuff that he
Yeah.
got from Chris Nolan's Batman's.
Mhm.
And we said that Wonder Woman did well was because Patty Jenkins, the director, kind of deviates from
Yeah.
the that dark and gritty
That
stuff.
dark and gritty look.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, that look works for works for Batman, but the other characters or Superman is super bright and cheery especially when you watch the cartoons. So is Wonder Woman. Although Aquaman, I can see why you gotta darken him up because some guy on a orange on an orange suit would look pretty cheesy nowadays. But even Flash is, decently bright and cheery.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
They made him into like Spider-Man,
yeah,
like a
yeah,
teenager.
yeah. But I think it's also one of these things where people probably saw Batman v Superman as the team up already, and they were disappointed by it. And this one is just kind of like we already seen the Avengers. We already kind of seen this team up in Batman v Superman. Unless it really hits it out of the park, people just didn't care anymore,
True, true.
except for the hardcore fans.
Right, right. But also remember that this cinematic universe was
Hmm.
really kind of like thrown together without any planning.
Yeah, yeah.
Before.
They saw how the Avengers did, and they already did Man of Steel, and they're like, well, Batman did so well. Let's darken up Superman and darken up everything,
Yeah, and let's create a
and then
cinematic universe out of this. you know.
yeah, and give Zack Snyder the wings to the whole universe. Which I'm sure 300 was decent, and what's the other comic book movie he did that was also decent? Yeah, the Watchmen. Is it
Watchmen, yeah,
Watchmen?
Watchmen, yes,
Yeah,
Watchmen, right.
Watchmen was decent, although I think it disappointed at the box office, but it was decent. I remember. But he also had a bunch of other duds
Yeah, well,
like Punch.
yeah, no, the thing is like with the Watchmen, right, and 300, he kind of pretty much followed the comic book, so he kind of have the storyboards already, right? So he just need to shoot those and with some adjustment here and there. But with his other movies, he kind of came up with his own stuff. So maybe that's why
Yeah.
that's why the other movies didn't do as well, or I mean, not well regarded.
Yeah, so it's too bad that Chris Nolan's, grew tired of, comic book movies after three Batmans. But you would think that he would be the guy to, maybe mastermind the entire DC universe. But they got Zack Snyder, who's more of a visual guy than a guy who can tell a great story.
Yep.
I mean, there are guys like that. I think Tim Burton's early career was kind of like that. He's more just a visual guy than a guy who, storytelling guy. Eventually, he improved. But Zack Snyder doesn't seem like he has improved
Well,
as a storyteller.
yeah, but he's still early in his career, really,
Yeah,
right? But then he doesn't. He's pretty much like doing all the same movies, kind of action
yeah.
superhero movies. Like he kind of wanted to be the Michael Bay.
I'm not
superhero
sure.
movies, kind of,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
kind of like
He's
that,
kind of flashy,
hmm
surfacey,
right?
not much below the surface type of director. But Tim Burton was like that in the beginning, but he eventually improved as a storyteller. Though
Right.
the narration in his story originally got pretty good, but it seems like Zack Snyder is still kind of on the same level.
Sure, sure. But then again, let's get back to what we said about the cinematic universe being slapdash, like just
Yeah,
thrown
yeah,
together.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that. I remember when the news that Warner Brothers had a conference call and they just put some numbers on the date. They just circle some dates and saying
Right.
we're gonna release these some superhero movies. They don't have names on these dates, and I don't think they even know what movies they're gonna make.
Right.
So that's why you could say that, they just have to come up with these movies, and all these titles and all these characters. So that's why maybe, and of course Zack Snyder is involved since he's the mastermind. I heard that Chris Nolan is kind of like a consultant or something like that, but I'm not sure if he's that involved.
Right.
I'm pretty sure his name is on, or something. He's kind of consultant, maybe not. Who knows? But he has his own stuff going on.
Or maybe it's just like, hey, Chris Nolan, can we just use your name here to add some prestige to these movies?
Right. But creative people, right? It's like they're pretty protective of their stuff, right? I'm like, okay, you do your own thing, I do mine. I might talk to you about it.
Well, it could have been like, we'll let you put $100 million on Dunkirk if you let us attach your name to the DC movies. Could have been like that.
Right. Okay, but then again, like I say, this is just one movie, right? I mean, the previous one, even though the reviews weren't good, Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, Man of Steel, they did okay. They did okay. It's only this one, so we don't know if this is like the beginning.
I think Suicide Squad exceeded everyone's expectations at the box office.
Right. So
Batman v Superman slightly disappointed because it was seen as the original Justice League already. It was seen as the launching pad for all these movies, kind of like the Avengers. So when you compare it to the first Avengers, I think overall people were kind of disappointed in terms of the box office and the movie.
Yeah,
but Suicide Squad disappointed in terms of the quality, but in terms of box office, I think it exceeded expectations.
Right, and that movie had Will Smith, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, this is just like the first one, which disappoints. We don't know if it's just this movie or we're seeing the reviews finally catching up to.
I think it's like we said earlier.
Yeah.
It was like what we said earlier. It disappointment after disappointment finally caught up to it. Wonder Woman looks more like an anomaly now, but we'll have to see how Aquaman turns out next year, right?
Yeah, next year. I think December 21st next year, and I believe there's also a Untitled superhero movie in July next year as well. I think.
From WB.
I think so.
They're probably going, oh man, we have to wait till 2019 to do another Wonder Woman.
Yes. So that's why I'm saying, I maybe they have a title for it. Maybe there's a movie, or maybe that, I'm just looking at the list on Box Office Mojo, right? They have an Untitled DC film in July. Then in December of 2018, Aquaman, and another Untitled film in April of 2019, and another Untitled DC film in June. So close.
Yeah.
Right, and another one Untitled DC film in November 2019. Or maybe that was Wonder Woman.
Yeah, 2019 there's definitely Wonder Woman.
Okay, yeah.
They might. Yeah, so next year is Aquaman, so we'll see how James Wan does with that.
Right, so you can see, they have some placeholders on the calendar, but no real movies yet, with the exception of Aquaman and Wonder Woman too.
Yeah, the weird thing is it seems like people don't care about the team up anymore, and now people definitely care about Wonder Woman. I feel like Aquaman, from the reviews, Aquaman and The Flash were well regarded. It didn't seem like people care much about, was it Cyborg?
Yes.
Yeah. Because his character was kind of underdeveloped in the film.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's the difference between like the DC movies and the Marvel movies. It's like the Marvel that they have these characters kind of like were slowly introduced.
Oh, right. They introduced these characters first, and then they all came together.
Right. Like Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, right? She was kind of like the secretary, kind of like in the background. Let people get used to her first, and then she took on bigger roles, in subsequent movies.
Right.
And then
because she's Scarlett Johansson.
Well, sure, but I'm saying it's just that. It's just that they kind of like get people used to these characters first before they have their own movies. If they're not well known, and then they
Right.
did the team up. But with the DC movies, they just kind of like try to jump right in. Okay, we need to
Yeah.
have our Avengers movie as soon as possible. Even though they don't know who these characters are, we just throw them in anyway, and sort it out later with their own movies.
Well, I think the main thing is, like we mentioned before, Batman v Superman was the Justice League movie, and that disappointed. And Justice League is actually Justice League 2, which kind of disappointed too.
Yes, yes. But hey, let's talk about the foreign box office since we haven't talked about that. It did well.
Yeah.
Overseas it did like 309 million, right? The worldwide gross right now is 481. So I mean, it might not make as much as Batman versus Superman, but I don't know. It depends on the
We'll
budget.
see.
It depends on the budget.
The budget's pretty high. We'll have to see. I mean, I don't think it doesn't look like it's on pace to do as well as Batman v Superman internationally, worldwide, because worldwide that one did 873 million. Although this one is at nearly 500 million, there's still about 400 million to go, and it doesn't look like it's gonna get there.
Yeah, like domestically, it's not gonna make as much as Batman vs Superman, and as you said, maybe overseas it might not make as much. So overall, it's gonna be lower.
Yeah, the other thing that affected this that they didn't count on is Thor 3 turned out so well, and it was just released a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks before Batman v Superman.
Sure, but there was all like competition with the Marvel movies as well. With the Batman vs Superman.
Like which ones came out before that? Civil War, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Civil War. The Civil War came out before or after?
I'm not sure, but
let me see.
but there was like.
Oh, you know what? Civil War came out after because I remember originally Batman v Superman was placed in the Civil War spot, and eventually Batman v Superman budged. They knew that they were no match for Civil War. Correctly.
Right.
So they moved it forward.
I remember that. I forgot if they move it back or move it forward. So they move it forward. Okay.
They moved it. Yeah, they moved it forward. And you know what? So that one didn't have anything to contend with before. So it had a chunk of space by itself. But Thor was only released 2 weeks ago, and Thor was the best Thor movie.
Yeah, right.
Of the three, and Thor turned out to do numbers that are similar to what an Avengers movie would do.
Right. So and I said Warner Brothers has to be worried about Justice League and the other movies moving forward, because is this an anomaly, or is this like we said, the reviews catching up to it?
Well, they know that they can definitely count on Wonder Woman, but the jury is out for Aquaman. There's still Batman. But it seems like this whole team up thing isn't going so well for them.
Right.
But the individual movies might.
Okay, then we'll have to look forward to the other movies, see if this is just a blip or is something of a longer worry, right? But again, I James Wan, he's a very successful director. I believe still overlooked. So I look excited to see what he can do with Aquaman.
Right. Oh, you know what? One of those movies is Josh Whedon's Batgirl.
Right, that too. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And there is during Justice League, there was a sequence Batman was talking about handing the wings to Wonder Woman.
Okay.
So eventually it does look like they might rejigger the Justice League formula to allow Wonder Woman to be the leader of the group. Because Batman was saying, hey, sometimes you gotta. They were talking about leadership and how Wonder Woman eventually needs to lead again, like she did in Wonder Woman. So it looks like he's kind of, Batman's, about to hand over hand the keys to Wonder Woman.
Okay. So
You know,
which could mean a lot of things. Which could mean a lot of things
yeah,
because, since her movies did the best.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, on a worldwide, I was still below Batman vs Superman, but domestically,
Mm,
her Wonder Woman movie did the best. Um,
yeah.
but does this mean they're pushing Wonder Woman, or does this mean Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill is kind of moving out the picture? You know,
Well, no, I don't think.
we don't know.
Well,
We don't know.
I think the more that they're pushing Wonder Woman, and who knows, maybe Patty Jenkins would eventually get to direct a Justice League, and we'll see something different.
Yeah, could be, could be.
And who knows, this might be the WB's new way to move the DC universe into the forefront and differentiate it from Marvel, which is male heavy. Most of their characters in Marvel are led by male characters. I guess you could say the same thing about DC, but at least in DC, if Wonder Woman is a leader, you at least have one woman leader of the entire DC universe.
Right, but we don't know if this will turn off the fans, right? Since it's kind of different from the comic books.
I think at this point, Wonder Woman did so well, it didn't turn anyone off. It brought both sexes together, and it brought some mainstream audience into Wonder Woman.
Right, right,
It
and
wasn't just the hardcore fans.
right, 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 and I guess like longer term, Zack Snyder, right? Um, we don't know how involved he's gonna be in moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to say. Some of the hardcore fans are like, are now demanding a Zack Snyder cut of the movie. They think that Josh Whedon ruined it. Which a lot of people have said, hey, you could tell, his dialogue actually improved the films. His dialogue, the banter between all these characters in Justice League were actually pretty good, better
Mm-hmm.
than Batman v Superman, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that has to do with Josh Whedon. But
Right.
the hardcore fans now demand Zack Snyder cut of the film.
Right, right. But like I say, emotionally, I mean, will Zack Snyder recover? Right. I mean,
Yeah,
his daughter passed away,
yeah,
right?
right.
So we don't know if he's gonna be involved or how he's gonna, like I say, the change after this. So we don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Eventually, he'll come back. It's like all these professionals, basketball players, when they have something big in turmoil in their life. You always hear these basketball players. They get back on the court and they regain their footing by
Okay.
going back to doing what they love.
All right. All right. Okay. So
Yeah.
our time is limited. I don't know how much time you have left.
Oh, okay, right.
We need to move along.
All right.
So how much time you have
I'm
left?
making up for my 2 weeks off.
Okay, okay, okay. Let's move along. We can talk more
Okay.
in other podcasts. Number three is Wonder. I put in 22.3 million over the weekend. It opened to 27 million.
Hmm.
This movie surprised me because it's a heartwarming movie about a kid who I think has some illness, who needs multiple surgery on his face and other places, I believe. So he's kind of disfigured, and he has to go to school, and with kids, right? He has to endure the teasing and other
Yeah.
stuff from classmates and probably
Mm.
adults, and he has to learn to accept what's coming to Finn, and then he befriends some other kids, and this movie stars Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson as that kid's parents, based on a novel.
Right. I read that the impetus for the book or the novel was showing acts of kindness. So that was the theme, the reason why she wrote the novel. It's a sleeper hit of the season.
Right, I thought this movie would open to about 10 million, but it opened way higher than that. And I thought that, hey, there's like other big movies in theaters,
Mm.
but I didn't
Mm.
expect it to open to 27 million. And Julia Roberts, Owen Wilson, they're not the draw that they
Yeah,
used to be, and they're more like background characters,
yeah.
But surprisingly, it did open really well, and
Mm.
the drop off is only 19%. from the
right.
previous weekend. So already it grows nearly 70 million domestically after 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's pretty well reviewed too, 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and these films are very hard to make right, because you could be overly melodramatic or overly sentimental, and that's one of the reasons why the author was very reluctant to make the movie, because she was afraid that it might turn into one of these TV movies where it's what I said before,
Right, right.
overly melodramatic, overly sentimental. But then it turned out really well. It was well reviewed, and it became a sleeper hit.
Yeah, 84% on Rotten Tomatoes last I checked, and an A+ cinema score. So
Right.
people who saw it liked it, and by the low drop off, judging by the low drop off, 19%. There's word of mouth going, and in a crowded theater, Coco, Justice League, Thor, and others, this movie kind of have a place for itself.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of low drop-offs, let's move on to number 4, Thor: Ragnarok. It did 17.8 million over the weekend. A drop-off of only about 22%. It's taken in 277 million after 4 weeks. Let me see what the worldwide figure is. Worldwide is at 790 million.
Okay, nothing more to say here. It's already in its 4th week. Best Thor movie.
Yep, commercially and critically.
Right. So, hey. Okay, let's move on to number 5, Daddy's Home 2. It pulled in about 13.2 million over the weekend, about 8% drop off from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is 72 million, and worldwide right now is 87 million. It looks like there's some family bonding time here with the low drop off.
Yeah. Despite poor reviews, 17% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's kind of like the counter programming to Thor Ragnarok, for guys maybe who wants a more bonding time, I guess.
Sure.
All right, we'll go with that.
Yeah. Next on the list is Murder on the Orient Express. Like Daddy's Home 2, the drop off is really low, only about 6%. It pulled in 13 million. And the total is 74 million. Let me see, worldwide it's at almost 200 million.
All right, this is one of these movies where they throw stars after stars after stars on screen, and it worked.
Yeah.
Okay, do you need to go?
Yeah, so let's do this.
Okay, let's move on to number 7, The Stars, the Sony animation, about the birth of Jesus Christ from the perspective of the animals, the donkeys, the camels. Pulled in about 6.9 million over the weekend, 22 million domestic so far after 2 weeks. The drop off is about 30%.
So doing well for a modest budgeted animated film.
Right, and it's built as from the people who made the meatball movies. Right. Okay. Number 8 is A Bad Mom's Christmas. It pulled in 5 million over the weekend. Drop off is about 28%. Gross so far is about 60 million.
The first film did over 100, right?
Yes, and this one, worldwide is at 92 million. So even though it didn't make as much as the first movie, it's still pretty successful since it only cost about 28 million to make.
Right. All right. At number 9 is Denzel Washington's new film that has been expanded. Woman J Israel Esq or ESQ.
Sure.
I put in 4.5 million after expanding to over 1,000 theaters. It's grossed 6.3 million after 2 weeks of release. The budget is 22 million, which is surprisingly low for a Denzel movie. But based on its budget, it wasn't one of these movies that was expected to do blockbuster numbers. But even still, 4.5. Kind of disappointing for a Denzel Washington movie.
Yeah, this movie that I was completely wrong on. I thought, hey, it's a Denzel Washington movie. And with him alone, it could probably do 25 million 3 days, 35 million 5 days. But as you said, this is not that type of movie, and the box office kind of bore it out.
Right. Reviews went great, 54% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And then number 10, another indie movie by Fox Searchlight, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Stars Frances McDermott and others. It's a small drama about a mother, trying to, kind of shaming the town into finding her daughter's killer. Pulled in about 4.4 million over the weekend. Expanded domestic gross is 7.6 million after 3 weeks.
Doing pretty well even after the expansion. The per theater average is 7,000. Which is decent when you expand it to over 500 screens. It's showing that it has legs and it could eventually reach a mainstream audience.
Yeah, this is one of these movies where it's an actor's movie, a small drama about slice of life about people living in these towns, going through all these things, and we might hear more about this movie come award season.
Let's give a shout out to Lady Bird, a film directed by Greta Gerwig, who's a Sacramento native.
Yay, Sacramento represent.
Yeah, part of the film in Sacramento, and it's pulling in great numbers in the limited release. It pulled in 4 million over the weekend after it expanded to 791 theaters. The per screen average is about 5,000, which is not too bad. Overall, it has already grossed about 11 million after 4 weeks of release. I think it still has a perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
After 160 something reviews, let's see. Yep, still 100%, 169 reviews.
All right.
This might be a record. This might be the best review film ever.
Sure. Yep. And so another movie we will hear about during the award season.
Right.
Right.
All right. I have to go, so we'll leave it at that.
All right. Sure. We'll catch up next time since the movies that are released this week are kind of limited, and it's a a lull in the season where they kind of give the award season movies some time. Yeah, with Disaster Artist, Shape of Water, and Wonder Wheel.
Yeah.
So enjoy your holidays. Talk to you soon. Come back next time.
All right. See you guys next week.